Welcome to Northwest Profiles, a look at people, places, and events of interest in the inland Northwest.
They had wicker seats, they had an air compressor for the brakes, and the electric motors chuckled. When you pulled up and stopped to load passengers or unload passengers, you could hear the chuckle of the motors underneath, and that's the only way I can describe the sound that they made.
That was Alex Mair talking about streetcars for the Edmonton Remembered public television documentary back in 1998. Alex was a contributor and consultant on that project and more than generous with his time when this Yank came to tell the story of his hometown. Nobody knew Edmonton like Alex knew Edmonton. The last of his 5 books, Gateway City, published in 2000, topped the local bestseller charts and remains popular today. If ever there were a game show on Edmonton history, Alex the one person you would have wanted on your team. When Alex talked about Edmonton's past, it was like watching a master with a brush. No detail escaped his attention, even when talking about something so large as the high-level bridge.
When it was completed, it was the 4th largest bridge in Canada. It had 2 lanes of traffic down below and 2 sidewalk lanes on either side of that. The 3 tracks on top of the bridge. It was about 2,000 feet long. It was 43 feet wide. It was 156 feet above mean high water, and there were 1.4 million rivets in it. It took 2,000 gallons of paint to give it the first 2 coats of paint. And on the 15th of May, 1935, a baby was born in a taxi cab stuck in the middle of the bridge.
Riding the streetcar across Edmonton's high-level bridge was a common memory among those we interviewed for the documentary project, and a memory that can still be lived today. When the bridge opened in 1913, it offered the highest crossing of a river by a streetcar in the world, a fact that wasn't missed by travelers who looked straight down, felt the wind blow, heard the power go out, or who got stuck in a cab halfway across while delivering a baby.
So when the baby went home to her house at 9926 101st Street, she was Olive Marie Poncela Beauchamp. And whenever you tell people about the high-level bridge, they're not that concerned about the number of rivets or the gallons of paint, but everybody wants to know what happened to Poncela Beauchamp. People were more concerned about the people's stories connected with the high-level bridge. And one of the other nice statistics, too, is that on a hot July day, it's 9 7/16 inches longer than it is on a cold February day, due to the coefficient of linear expansion, I might add.
How does he cram all of this stuff into his head? The secret to making the past relevant today lies in blowing the dust off our social history and finding the stories of those who lived and loved before us. Knowing the Mac opened in 1915 isn't particularly interesting, but Alex knew a personal story about the Hotel Macdonald that involved a plasterer by the name of John Leslie, and that made all the difference in the world.
I don't know whether you've been to the Macdonald Hotel or not. Have you had a look around? Did you notice the decorated plaster ceiling in the dining room? And did that ceiling impress you? I have a very strong feeling when I go to the Macdonald Hotel and look up at the ceiling in the dining room, for example, because John Leslie was my grandfather.
Alex had a hand in making Edmonton history himself. As a youngster, he played the bass drum in the celebrated Edmonton Schoolboys Band, and as a teenager, played at the local skating rinks, something he always considered a handicap.
If you took your girl to the skating rink, you got to skate with her and you got to put your arm around her. And it was always a little difficult to be the drummer looking out and playing your heart out and watching your girlfriend skate by with some other turkey's arm around her. And you would throw your neck on a joint trying to watch them and make sure. And if they didn't come around for the second lap, you always wondered where they'd gone. But those are one of the handicaps of being a drummer in a skating rink band. Plus the fact that you never learned to dance either. I learned to skate, but never to dance.
Alex recalled he wanted to be a writer early on, but his Scottish parents urged him to pursue something that would better pay the bills. He became a civil engineer in 1948, but continued writing on the side, mostly technical articles, until one day in 1957 he sold his first historical essay to the CBC. That, he said, marked the beginning of his life as a word merchant. Alec continued his hugely popular twice-weekly CBC broadcasts until shortly before his death. Just as he gave life to the stories of our past, those stories now give life to Alec's memory. For example, who would know the difference between a hot tea and a cold tea unless you had been to the Trocadero, or unless you had heard the story from Alec?
And you quite often would lean across the table and say to your partner, hot tea or cold tea? And then you went on from that to supply them with the drink of their choice. It was totally illegal, and I think from time to time the gentleman in blue would arrive and prowl through the place and confiscate a little bit. But I don't remember any big raids or any great excitement about that kind of thing. It was almost an accepted fact. I better watch what I say or I'll have the law down on me for this.
They know where to find you.
They know where to find me.
What did a hot tea mean, or what did a cold tea mean?
A hot tea meant tea, and a cold tea meant rye and water. Cream and sugar in that, Tom?
As he came to know Edmonton history better and better over the years, Alex said he came to appreciate the warm sense of humor of the people who lived here. Those who knew Alec appreciated the same quality in him. Proof of Alec's sense of humor can be found in St. Paul, where his flying saucer landing pad, the first and only known in the world, was built as a provincial centennial project in 1987.
How are we doing, by the way?
Hey, I'm having a grand time. I learned 3 things from Alex Mair: that we should think of the past not in terms of what was, but what is; that old photographs are not of people who died, but people who lived; and that streetcars can shuffle.
Thank you very much. It's been a hoot all the way through.
If you have a story idea for Northwest Profiles, send it to KSPS TV, 3911 South Regal, Spokane, Washington, 99223. Northwest Profiles is a presentation of KSPS Public Television.